Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, I have a confession to make, gang. Instead of writing articles, recording podcasts, or indeed editing podcasts for my clients, I decided to take a step back from my tech duties and treat myself to some games console time this weekend. Now, I used to play it all the time, but I just don't seem to get the time to unwind anymore. So I figured all work and no play makes Jack a very dull boy. So I spent an afternoon playing World Cup mode on FIFA and can officially say I'm excited for the World Cup now. Apologies to my US friends, as I know you've not made it for the tournament this year. But what is it about the World Cup that delivers such childlike nostalgia in me? I mean, another confession for you all, I even considered investing in the World Cup Panini sticker album until I saw the price of stickers, which quickly brought me back to my senses. But after flirting with burnout a few weeks ago, I must admit, taking my foot off the gas for just a few hours did me the world of good. Speaking of sports, I'm quite excited about today's guest. Not only is he a great guy who I could have chatted to for hours, he also has a great tech and sports backstory. Mike McKee played professional hockey as a defenseman in Quebec from 1992 to 95. And his experiences have helped shape his entire approach of his company, ObserveIT, which is helping companies defend against insider threats. But Mike also applies lessons learned from sport to the security space too, most notably the idea of Moneyball. But enough spoilers from me. Buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Boston so we can speak with the legend that is Mike McKee from ObserveIT. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sounds good, Neil. My name is Mike McKee. I am the CEO of ObserveIT. CEO stands for Chief Explainer Officer. Explain to customers, prospects, employees, what we're working on, how we're going to get there. And ObserveIT is a cybersecurity company focused on insider threats or people. And we help organizations detect those insider threats, investigate them when necessary, and ultimately stop data breaches and data exfiltration.
Now, there's a lot of talk at the moment about the digital transformation, but the story that caught my eye and the reason I got you on here today was your transformation from professional hockey player to businessman. I mean, have you always been a tech guy?
I thought you were going to be talking cybersecurity trends or something, Neil. I have not always been a business person. I was a professional athlete for 3 years, and having grown up in Canada, where it's a little bit like the military service playing hockey, it was always a dream to play in the National Hockey League, and fortunately got that opportunity back in the early 90s. Like I said, I played for 3 years before concussions even became a big issue. Caught up with me, and I had to retire at the ripe old age of 25.
Now, we will talk about cybersecurity trends because that is your bread and butter, as they would say over here now. But can you tell me more about ObserveIT and how it's helping companies defend against those insider threats?
Yeah, for sure, Neil. So much of security to date has been focused on the external threat and kind of an outside-in perspective. And what a lot of organizations have realized over the last few years as they've put in place good policies and prevention mechanisms to detect against those external threats is that there's a lot of threats that walk in the door every day. And I would say it's the minority of an organization's employees. But as organizations rely more and more, not just on their employees, but on contractors, there's a lot of people with a lot of access to very valuable information. And if you look at any of the big studies around the data breaches, they almost always involve an insider. So our mission here is to help organizations identify and eliminate insider threat. And we do that by quite simply providing visibility on what people are doing and making it very easy to understand if Neil does something out of policies, what he was doing before, what he was doing after, and whether the organization should be worried about that or whether it's just normal course of business. So providing that visibility to organizations, providing them those warnings, or we sometimes say see the smoke before the fire, and then allowing those organizations to ascertain very quickly whether it's something they should worry about or not, helps them prevent those big data breaches and secure their intellectual property.
Now, when I was researching your career, your life and your story, the key word that jumped out for me was defence. I mean, has your hockey background shaped your IT business career and cybersecurity career too?
It's funny you say that. I was an offensive defenseman.
Was you?
I was pretty aggressive and tried to score goals, sometimes at the expense of defending my goalie. So I'm somewhat wary of making those parallels to cybersecurity and what ObserveIT's doing right now. But from a mentality perspective, it certainly shaped me in a lot of ways. Obviously there's the competitive element and wanting to win, quite frankly, and beat the competition. And sports, like business, you only do that by having a good team, working well together as a team, and also knowing what you're going after, and understanding the competition really well, and even more important, understand in the business world what your customers need. So yeah, a lot of the principles from hockey have helped me in business, but I'm not sure I would say it's my defense abilities going back to my hockey days.
Well, looking back at other lessons learned from sports to the security space, one that keeps cropping up is the idea of Moneyball, where you believe that metadata and visibility and the right data in the right time is actually the key to security. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
It's funny, I agree with that. And I would say a couple of points. So certainly data is incredibly valuable, and the ability to predict is a little bit aggressive, but the ability to understand what you should be worried about, data and machine learning and artificial intelligence can help that a lot. As it pertains to Moneyball, what I would say in how it relates to our business is, through that book, Michael Lewis, discovered, and the Oakland A's management that, put in place all of the data analysis, is that people weren't always looking at the right factors when trying to ascertain athletes. And, one of the things that I think we offer to organizations is, we've worked with our 1,700 customers. We've worked with the Carnegie Mellon Institute of Insider Threat, and we know what those predictors of insider threats are. And our library of 300 insider threat alerts is based on that intelligence. And whether that's moving a big file at strange hours, whether it's going to an application they don't normally go to, whether it's going within an application to areas they don't normally go, we're able to see that, have data, and help people predict in a much better way and take a look into people that might be a threat. So I think there's a lot of comparisons, a lot of parallels, I should say, to Moneyball, Neil.
Believing in the Moneyball system is one thing, but am I right in saying that you prove the theory by also using that approach at ObserveIT to help mitigate insider threats? Especially because, like we said earlier, it's a huge issue given that 70% of insider threats are now going unnoticed and take several months to uncover and are extremely costly. Did you use that same system?
Yeah, and I go back to the early warning signs, meaning, a lot of external threats, it's, ransomware attack. It's malware coming in. It's DDoS, trying to take down systems. On the internal side, it's not normally one and done. Normally there's some predictors, and someone sort of dips their toe in the water, then they get a little bit deeper, and then they take out more documents, and they take out more after that. So by catching what's going on, or seeing, I should say, providing visibility, what's going on early in that process, makes a huge difference, and is very important in terms of detecting those insider threats. And a lot of the time, the people are just trying to get their jobs done. I always make the joke that, when I go to a conference, I'll often modify the presentation on the way there, and I want to give the conference organizer my revised file. So I pull out my USB, I plug it into my computer, then I plug it into their computer, then I plug it back into my computer. Well, that's actually pretty stupid, because I could be picking up a virus when I put it on their computer, and I'm just trying to get my job done. So by providing an alert that says, hey, don't use external USB drives, or don't go to cloud file sharing services, or don't click on this link, quite often our alerts can help educate people and help reinforce policies and prevent something bad from happening when the person is, like I said, just trying to do their job.
So this approach to data analytics, do you think it's actually helping security teams move from that passive approach where you wait for something to go wrong and then react to it, to the actual proactive approach where you're stopping something happening before it even occurs?
Yeah, the way that I like to position it is going from reactive to proactive to predictive. Yeah. And I would say we're, to be totally honest, about halfway through that cycle. in that historically most organizations have taken a reactive approach to insider threats. And all of a sudden they get wind of a data breach and they go back into a bunch of different systems, a bunch of different log files, and try to figure out what happened. More and more, they're trying to take a proactive approach by using the alerts that I'm talking about and trying to get those early warning signs when someone's doing something wrong. And then over time, as machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms get better, I think organizations will be able to become predictive. But I wouldn't claim that we're at predictive yet. And I would say that if you're an organization and you've moved from the reactive stage to both being reactive and proactive and have those early warning signs based on alerts going off, you're doing pretty well.
Now, one of the questions I always ask the guests on here is if they've got a favourite book that's made a deep impact on their life. Do you have anything similar that's really impacted you, and could you share that story? And don't say Moneyball, okay? That's the one thing I won't allow you to say.
This is a pretty personal reflection because I was going over books that have impacted me a lot in the last little while. And then I was trying to figure out what the common thread through those books was. You know, recently there was the Steve Jobs book by, Walter Isaacson?
Yeah.
You know, that was pretty amazing to me. Changing back to the world of athletics, the biography on Andre Agassi called Open was pretty amazing to me. Yeah. Recently on the business side, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, the Ben Horowitz book about running companies was interesting. And then going way back to my teenage years, you know, Ayn Rand and The Fountainhead. And I was thinking about the common thread through those books, and it's, you know, passionate pursuit of a mission. And whether it's building a business, and Ben Horowitz is The Hard Things About Hard Things, or whether it's building a technology company with Steve Jobs, or whether it's becoming the #1 tennis player in the world with Andre Agassi, or, you know, building a utopian society with Ayn Rand, it's someone passionately pursuing a mission. And, you know, I find that fascinating in the business world. I find that fascinating in the athletic world. And I think it kind of just goes back to how much I admire people that have a passion and pursue it full out. And also know that there's lots of ups and downs along the way. All of those books, as I think about, focus as much on the downs as they do the ups. And, you know, the thing that I've learned most since becoming a CEO is how much there is to learn. And I think a lot of those people that, you know, work in great organizations and do well are incredible learners and incredibly critical of themselves and, you know, learn from those failures. So
I couldn't agree more. I could be completely misquoting someone here, but I'm sure it was Venus Williams that said you don't learn from winning matches, you learn from actually the losses, don't you? That's what teaches you the lessons. Yeah,
for sure. So, I was really attracted to those books, and your question prompted me to try to figure out what the connection was, and that's what it was.
Yeah, no, I love the eclectic mix of it all as well, with the sport and business and everything.
Well, truth be told, I don't read that many books, so it was a pretty small sample size. I say that somewhat facetiously, but I have 4 kids and life's busy. I wish I did read more, but fortunately I was lucky enough to come across some good ones recently that I have read.
Yeah, I think we all feel that way as regards reading because, like you say, there was so many time stealers, and that's before you even get home and you've got your kids and family to look after. But what's next for yourself and ObserveIT? Is there anything else you can share with us today?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I feel really fortunate to have taken the company through such growth over the last couple of years, where we've doubled from a number of employees and from a bookings perspective. And like I said, it's a function of organizations realizing that insider threat is, I was about to use an American term, a base they have to cover. Yeah. A threat they have to be aware of. I apologize for using the American term there. And quite frankly, the tools that have been there, data loss prevention was the tool to stop data breaches for a long time. And people realized it's just too hard to figure out what files need to get locked down and try to prevent it. You need much more of a detect and respond perspective, where you're getting, like, insider threats are going to happen. You can't stop that. What you can do is see them early and deal with them early. And then there was a whole area called user entity behavior analytics that for a little while was seen as a silver bullet for the insider threat space. And most of those guys have gone into the SIM market. So So there's a big gap in solving that problem, and people are looking for a better solution. And I see ourselves, as the leader in that space, developing it. Areas where we're going is obviously cloud and mobile. Historically, if you were monitoring insider threats on desktop and servers, you were doing pretty well. But more and more of those threats are coming from mobile devices going to cloud applications. So we want to keep being the best company in the world when it comes to providing visibility on what people are doing and those early warning signs when they're doing something that you don't want them to.
Well, you're more than welcome using covering bases when I throw in bread and butter a few moments ago. So I think we're evens there. But
there you go. I did play a little cricket when I was... you got the stumps and the bails and stuff like that, but I don't really know how that. I can't really use that as a metaphor for cybersecurity yet.
Next time we get you on, we'll work that one in somehow. But before I do let you go, can I just ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find you online and contact your team if they have any questions or want to carry this conversation away and talk more about insider threats and cybersecurity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the website, www.observeIT.com. There's lots of information there. There's videos there. You can request a demo. You can request pricing. We have offices around the world. The company was founded in Tel Aviv. So we have a large presence there. We have a large presence in Boston right now, but we also have folks in Singapore, in the UK, in San Francisco. So if you find us, we'll find you. And if you are concerned about insider threat, we'd love to see if we can help you with that problem.
Excellent. Well, in my IT career in a former life, I did notice more and more IT teams were getting outsourced and more contractors coming in. And I must be honest with you, even as a former IT guy, I never stopped to think about insider threats. So a big thank you for coming on today and raising awareness around that, because there's going to be a lot of CEOs probably listening all over the world now, or IT directors suddenly thinking, insider.
It's funny on that last threat, Neil. I mean, there's a stat out there that says by 2020, 40% of workers will be either project workers or contractors. And you think about that fact, you think about the fact that, millennials, if they don't like a job, they just change. And the average tenure in a job has gone down dramatically. Also in keeping with the generation, it's a sort of time of transparency and flat organizations. So more people have more access to more information, more different ways, and they're less loyal to the organizations they're working for. And I still believe most people are good people, but there are situations where, you want to be careful and you want to keep honest people honest. So it's an area that we do our best to help organizations better understand.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there, saying a lot of individuals will be less loyal to organisations than ever before. So a big thank you again for coming on. Let's stay in touch and hopefully get you on in 6 months or a year and see how things are going. But thanks for coming on today.
That'd be great, Neil. Hopefully I'll have read another book by then.
Man, I could have grabbed myself a cold brewski and chatted with Mike for hours. What a great guy. But outside of that, I love his concept that metadata and visibility and putting the right data at the right time is key to security. And I love how he's used this approach at ObserveIT to help mitigate insider threats, which is a huge issue given that 70% of insider threats go completely unnoticed and often take several months to uncover and are extremely costly. Now, as a movie and sports fan, I also love how he's using the Moneyball approach to data analytics that helps security teams move from a passive to a proactive approach to security. But don't listen to this World Cup, Panini and FIFA-loving tech podcaster and writer. What are your thoughts about today's conversation? As always, email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Why not also tell me who you think's going to win this year's World Cup, and if you have a wall chart on your wall in your office yet or not. Message me about this or indeed anything at all. However, I have taken up far too much of your time, so a warm thank you for joining me today. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.